See how that makes sense?
It's August 30th, 2018, and it is 5:30, so we're going to start the citizen forum. First on the list would be Mary Jane Skinner. Come up, Miss Mary, and state your name and address for the record. We all know where you live, but state it for the record. Thank you.
My name's Mary Jane Skinner. I reside at 792 Stones River Road. Been there, 58 years, Mr. Waldron? Or about there. And what I'm concerned about is the big trucks up and down Stones River Road. Twice I have had to move over so far. One day this week, and I came by and told one of the guys, Mr. Garland, I believe it was, that truck was so far over on my side of the road that when I stopped, the front end of my car had touched the guardrail. And this is not the first time. They come through there and then don't even slow down to turn onto Hollinsdale's Road. And here they've got dirt, rock, or whatever. And there's children up and down Hollandale Road now. And it's scary, very scary. And I just wondered if maybe something could be done to slow them down, put an officer out there when they start early in the mornings and throughout the day. I know it may not be feasible, but I feel like something should be done because those big trucks coming through there, and I'm tired of getting run off the road. And I'm glad to see the houses going up. I've met several new people. Some of them were not happy to see me knock on the door and say, "Welcome to Laverne." I was told they don't speak English, and I said, well, welcome anyway, and I left. So, but anyway, that's my main concern tonight is those big trucks on Stones River Road and the little patch there by the detention pond. Wondering where they were going to start working on that because we have to pull over on the other lane to keep from hitting that patch of broken up concrete. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Larry Raymond. Please come up, state your name, and Raymond, yeah. For your name and address for the record, please.
1026 Betty Lou Lane, and thank you, Mayor and Alderman. Mayor, I just have a couple of questions. I need someone to explain to me what a right-of-way is, where it starts, where it stops. I need to know that so that I will not put any signs any spots where they're not supposed to be. Could someone explain that to me? What a right-of-way is exactly? Where does it start and where does it stop at on my personal property?
This is not really a question and answer session. If you want to talk to us after the meeting, we'd be glad to try and help you with that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Deborah Hugan. Please come up and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name's Deborah Hewen. I live at Randall Lane. And I wanted to come here tonight and talk about maybe doing a memorial at the park for Ricky McCormick. Since he's dedicated 31 years of his life to the city and died while he was still presently employed by the city. Something like what we did for Jeff Coos, maybe a plaque or a little monument or something up near the wall. I know he's not a veteran, but something near the wall so that people can come there and maybe sit down and show their appreciation for his time served here. So I won't spend too much time on that tonight because we got an issue with signs. A right-of-way is what the city has on everybody's individual property that is kind of like a utility right-of-way, and I know there's no permanent structures that are supposed to be there, but for years and decades we've been able to put signs, real estate signs, campaign signs, and everything on personal property and put them even in the right-of-way as long as it didn't block someone's view as they're turning at a corner lot or something like that. Why all of a sudden are they making an issue of the campaign signs being on personal property? And I mean, some of the right-of-ways are 10, 15 feet back. they go 10 to 15 feet back on a property. That's unrealistic. If I had to put a real estate sign that far back into the middle of somebody's yard, I might not sell the house if it wasn't for the internet. So the big question is, you know, maybe you can enforce that, but why is codes not giving proper notification of a codes violation or of giving the owners a chance to remove the signs back themselves? Why are they taking them? There's a truck, a city truck that was full of Jason Cole signs for mayor and Matt Church signs and Steve No signs. It's a picture of a city truck that's full of those signs. They didn't notify the owners of the property that they were taking those signs. There's people that are taking pictures and videos of the signs that are being taken, and some of them are not even in the right-of-way. But why all of a sudden are you wanting, just the timing of this thing, to take the campaign signs that have always been placed in people's yards, their personal property, even in the right-of-way, if they're not blocking traffic or causing someone, a city worker, not to be able to access a water line or do some kind of work? There's no reasonable excuse for it. It's glaringly obvious that this was a ploy to cut back on the Cole, No, and Church signs. And I mean, people don't vote by signs. People vote when they go to the voting polls to vote. And I just think it's just a big stretch to all of a sudden do this. Why have they not done it before? Why aren't they doing it for all signs? I mean, you pull up my real estate sign, you're costing me $60 or $70. Are they going to return the property?
Thank you very much. Next on the list is Wayne Dover. Please come up, state your name and the address for the record, please.
Wade Dover, 308 JR Drive. One of my main things I wanted to bring up, it was like Debbie, memorial for Ricky, but what I had mentioned to her, I'd like to see something at the park, not only for Ricky, but for any fallen hero as far as firemen, police, or so up there at the park. Anybody that would be currently employed, whether they died in the line of duty or at home, heart attack or so. I think all of them from the city of Laverne ought to be memorialized. As well as the signs, my feelings are the same as Debbie's. Citizens ought to be given a notice before removal. And are the signs going to be returned back to the candidates? Or are they going to be trashed? A lot of the citizens are wanting to know that, and the candidates. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you for it. That ends the citizen forum. Where's I guess she's not. We're just after 5:30. We're just going to start right into the meeting, the workshop agenda. This is the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Excuse me, August 30th, 2018. Mayor and Alderman workshop. Let's see, we run down to the prayers with Alderman Cole, and I have the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody needs to look over the minutes for August 9th, 2018 regular meeting. Number two, we got two presentations for meeting, but number B, certification of appreciation for Mayor Ernest Burgess, Commissioner Doug Schaefer, School Board Member Wayne Blair, and Aaron Holliday, meeting only, but we're going to do Doug Schaefer's tonight because Tuesday he will be out of town, so we were going to do his right now. Doug, where you want to come on up? But let's do it over here because a lot of times they don't pick up good. Okay, let's see. The City of Laverne's Certificate of Appreciation is hereby granted to Doug Schaefer for his continued dedication and commitment to the City of Laverne and Rutherford County. We gratefully acknowledge the tremendous impact you have made in our community and our country. given this day, the 30th day of August 2018, Dennis Waldron, Mayor of Laverne.
More minutes before they start swearing them all in Murfreesboro for the new county commission. So I guess I got 20 more minutes.
Thank you very much, Doug. That's squared away. We move into the old business. First reading ordinance 2018-21, on ordinance to amend Title 7, Chapter 6 of the Laverne Municipal Code regarding fireworks. This was deferred last month. Who's got this one?
I can speak a little bit about this. There's really no changes to this ordinance. At the last meeting, the motion was made and approved to defer this so it could go back, so it could go through Planning Commission, because there are some aspects in the zoning ordinance that we're going to look at the same time. So really, when this comes up Tuesday night, you probably need to go ahead and defer this again, because it is scheduled to be on the next Planning Commission at the September meeting there. So it'll come back again at the October meeting.
Any questions? Hearing no question, we're now number 5. First reading ordinance 2018-22, an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2017-2018 general fund. This is mainly to do with fleet maintenance. This is basically clean up, something we basically do every year. Any questions on the fiscal year general fund budget fleet maintenance cleanup? Everybody's quiet tonight. Number 6, motion to approve or reject a settlement offer for the Stacy Thompson lawsuit. Who's got this one?
Mayor, that was at the last executive session, and I think the board I think you deferred action on this consideration of this item. So it's back on your agenda item again to take action or to defer it or to table it. Those would be your options.
Okay. Any discussion on that? I know we've had it before. Any discussion?
Sir?
Was there a time frame at all on the settlement offer?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir. Which doesn't mean that it's necessarily open forever, but there was no time limit placed on it.
Puts you down number 7. That's a consent agenda. A motion to approve or reject city bid purchases. Who's got this one? Is this you? This is the salt. The salt thing. That's something we do every year, right?
It's something we do every year.
Any question on salt? We're going to order the same amount or more or less?
I think we've got a barn full, and then we've got 250 tons on standby.
When we order it, a lot of it don't come in. It stays at the salt place, and then but we got to order it to have it down at the river, right?
Yes, sir, down off of Raleigh.
Good deal. So we ordered about the same every year.
About 250, yes, sir.
Good deal. Hope we won't need none.
I hope we don't need any of them.
Any questions on the salt? Thank you.
I guess I can handle the next one, too.
You the next one? B, approve milling and paving for Jones Boulevard.
Yeah, this is off of Waldron Road. I think you may have some pictures in your packet of the road that's deteriorating. In the end of the cul-de-sac, we got the Piles Concrete Company. And when the big trucks started going in, it's just, the road was not built for bigger trucks. So we're going to have our paving contractor, Rogers Group, come in and mill 4 inches off of it. And then we're going to try to stabilize the rest of it. We're going to keep the millings, which we worked it out with Piles Concrete. They're going to let us dump them all there. And when we dig down 2 foot or whatever, we're gonna try to fill all it back up with that. Just enough to get them, we're gonna get it stabilized before we do anything. Then that area will have 4 inches of binder put back on it. And then we're gonna wait till possibly next fiscal year to pave the whole street. We're gonna make sure it holds up. So it'll cut down on a lot of the price for this year because it wasn't in my budget for this year to repair that. And didn't really know till the concrete company went in. But
Any
it's-
questions for Garland while he's up there on the? Okay, then C, I think this is you, Adam. This is approved local agency program agreement with TDOT for the I-24 Smart Corridor Project Phase 1.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, Board. This is a fairly standard maintenance agreement between the city and TDOT. As part of the I-24 Smart Corridor program, they're going to be running some new fiber optic line on Waldron Road so they can connect the signals. And as part of that, on Waldron Road and Murfreesboro Road, they're going to be replacing all the signal controllers in our traffic signal cabinets to a Econolite blue cobalt controller, which is a very expensive controller that Metro uses. Additionally, basically the agreement is they install it, we maintain it. It's a standard agreement that we have with any signal that they would put up. The other item that they're talking about is a DSRC, which is a very fancy way to say a direct Wi-Fi that talks to cars. That's part of the smart corridor. Eventually the hope is that these Wi-Fi units will be able to talk to cars. Cadillacs and Mercedes already have them installed, so there's back and forth communication. They intend to maintain those for 5 years, and after that they will be given to the city to maintain. They're new to basically everyone, so I don't know what all that entails, but that is the essence of the agreement.
Any questions for Adam? Thank you, Adam. I'm glad to see you got that Tennessee orange on. That puts us down to new business. First reading ordinance 2018-23, an ordinance to amend the Title 20, Chapter 2 of the Laverne Municipal Code by adding a new section 20-209 entitled Park Activity Near Right-of-Way, Access Road, etc. Who's got this one? Bruce?
Mayor, I can start on this one. We've had some concerns in the past about various activities, especially back here of recent with campaigning and early voting, whatnot. So we had previously tried to do a designated campaign area, which we later found out, would not be acceptable. So what we're doing is requesting a new section to go in that basically would require everyone to stay 10 feet off of all public right-of-ways, access roads, driveways, etc. Just for safety purposes, for people driving up and down the access road and this main driveway here at City Hall, and of course off of the main roads too. In the past, we've always had some issues with people being out in the road or too close to the road, and I know that we have had some vehicles that have run off this little access road back here. We just want to make sure everyone is safe and that we don't have any future issues. So we wrote this, and Evan had a big hand in this. It does not limit campaign activity overall. Just want to make sure everyone is safe back there.
Any questions on number 8, number 9?
Bruce, what,
Number 8.
do we have any other municipalities in the Middle Tennessee area that have this type of ordinance?
I am not aware of any at this time. I've not really looked into that.
Okay. And Evan, has anything like this ever been tested in court, or have we researched that?
No, I'm not aware of a specific ordinance that would limit this, no, but cities, municipalities have general police power that when it comes to the public health, safety, and welfare, as long as it's content neutral and activity neutral, cities have the inherent authority to govern safe conduct on the property. Where it would be problematic is if you said, people who are protesting the president can't stand 10 feet closer to the road or whatever, but everybody else can go wherever they want. That would be a problem. This is a neutral ordinance, so. But to answer your question directly, I'm not aware of any case law that's challenged this.
Okay. Is there a way before the meeting you can, before we meet next week, you can look into that, see if there's anything out there?
Sure, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
And has, Bruce, has anybody talked to the election commission? I know they're kind of the authority on elections, just to kind of temperature gauge that.
I have not sent this exact ordinance to them. I had talked to Alan Farley a while back, and you know, he seemed to be okay when it comes to safety issues. His biggest concern was the 100-foot boundary that they establish.
And one thing, Alderman Cole, that we've done to make sure that we address all those issues is, if you'll note, the very last sentence there says this includes but is not limited to political campaign activity except as may be otherwise prescribed by state or federal law. So the ordinance, the way it's written itself, is flexible, and it's meant to comply with federal and state law, so that if there's any federal, state law, case law, or statute that conflicts with our ordinance, then our ordinance complies with state law. So it's basically takes care of itself.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know in previous election years, there have been some problems with people having their signs in the road where their physical body was on the inside of the side of the road, but the sign itself was hanging over the road, and people were nervous to drive through there and worried about hitting somebody, and, you know, had to slow down to a crawl, you know, during that time.
Just for clarification, this is for public safety, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're talking about people that, to keep, we don't want traffic and people to mix. We're talking about public safety, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And have we had any incidents back here in the last year with the last two elections, as far as any, during the early voting with the county primaries and the county generals, with as far as wrecks or anyone getting hit?
Not that I'm aware of, but I'd like to prevent that from happening for liability issues.
My understanding of this board is we're supposed to be proactive as opposed to reactive. Do we have to have someone to be hit first? Or are we going to be proactive?
Is that to the board, or is that
It's
to
anyone
anyone?
it's either one of you that wants to answer. Do we need to have someone injured before we make the rule, or do we need to do it so no one will be injured?
Well, no, I don't think anyone's arguing that. For me, I'm asking because this is, as you say, for health and safety, and that there's been incidents. So trying to clarify if those instances have resulted as a fact of this moving, as far as early voting moving behind City Hall, the multipurpose, to where before it was at the Civic Center, where we already know Old Nashville Highway is traffic, headache for everybody, versus back here where there's very little traffic.
Okay, and the understanding behind that, what I understand is, out there at the Civic Center, the rules were already set and everyone knew where not to get into. This was a new location, therefore we have to emphasize where you should or shouldn't be.
Well, the county establishes that. They throw out their signs saying it's 100
This is
feet.
Laverne. This is the city of Laverne.
Right, but the county oversees the elections, Calvin, so they establish the 100-foot
I
barrier,
understand the county,
not the city.
The county does oversee that, so therefore if the county had oversaw that and we had something in place, we wouldn't have to have this discussion at this point.
Well, this part, as far as where easements are concerned, that is a city issue. What you were saying, as far as, marking where people can and can't stand.
We're not marking where people can and can't stand.
Oh, if you'd let me finish, sir.
We're not, well, just
Sir,
make sure
if
you
you'd let me
understand.
finish.
There's no need to continue if you're saying that I said that we're marking where people can and can't stand. I'm not saying that. So, go ahead.
Well, you said that just a minute ago. They establish a 100-foot barrier where campaigning can't take place past. So that's, as far as traditionally throughout the state, been the establishment for campaign activities. Of course, nobody's out in the middle of the road, with campaign signs. People have always, been on one side of the road or the other. But I haven't heard of an instance back here where anyone's gotten hurt or gotten close to being hurt.
And we're grateful for that.
Yes, we're very
We don't
grateful.
want that to happen. Therefore, we're going to put this forth so it won't happen in the future?
We'll see.
We've been lucky.
We've been blessed, yes.
Okay.
Any further questions on number 8? I'll remove number 9, the resolution 2018-20, a resolution of the city of Laverne, Board of Mayor and Aldermen to declare property owned by the city to be surplus to the city needs and directing disposal of the same. This is vehicles that's been confiscated or seized. I think it's automobiles, vehicles and stuff. Any questions? I don't see anybody in the police department here to answer it, but anybody have any questions? It's something we do when they confiscate or seize a vehicle. It's held for a period of time and it's surplused out. So we're down to number 10, resolution 2018-21, a resolution to name a bridge on Carruthers Road, Buckadee Bridge. Any questions on that? If not, I'll explain it. It's Buckadee is an Indian name given to a gentleman that served in the War of 1812. He lived feet from that bridge. He died feet from the bridge, and he is buried in an unmarked grave feet from the bridge. It's going to be a resolution to name the new bridge that's built on Carruthers Road. Any discussion on the bridge?
Mayor Waldron, is this a relative of yours?
It's a distance. It'd be William B. Waldron. I don't know, it's 4 or 5 back grandfather. Okay. William B. Waldron, the Indians called him Buckadee. He settled, he got out of the war in 1812, about 1815, and settled in that part of Tennessee, and that's who he was.
Okay.
Any more discussions? I'll try to tell anybody as much as I know about it. Hearing nothing about it, I'll move down to 11. A resolution to authorize the establishment of a industrial development board of the city of Laverne to provide for the authorization. Who's got this one?
I can talk about this one, Mayor. This is something we've been working on for quite some time. I think we have everything lined up that needs to be to establish the Industrial Development Board. We do have the application, which is in your packet, and then we have to approve this resolution in order for them to file their certificate of incorporation. And then once that is done, it will come back to this board again for another resolution to actually appoint the directors for that board. But this is the first step, and I think it's something that will be needed hopefully sometime down the road to help recruit and bring in more retail and commercial development here in Laverne.
I just want to say also that this resolution for the Industrial Development Board, although the name is IDB Industrial, it is primarily going to focus on the retail component of it. This is something the Economic Development Team's been working on for many, many years, getting the qualified residents, that it cannot be someone that's a city employee or someone that sits on the board. So it took a long time for us to be able to get those volunteers and put this into place. So this is a measure so that we can try to attract more retail into our city using some things like possibly TIF grants and other things that will be accessible to us through this IDB. So that's why it's important for the further development of Laverne. When it doesn't supersede the county IDB, we are focusing on the retail, and they continue with the industrial.
Any further question? I know this has been in the planning stages and talked about for a while, and it's good to see it's finally coming to some kind of measure here. Puts it down number 12. Motion to appoint or remove board members, committee members. A, Greenway Committee, 1 term vacant. That's Kelsey Charter, she resigns. And we had 2 applicants, I think it's, who we have, Bruce?
Jimmy Favorman and Brianna King are the 2 applicants we have.
Mr. Faberman and Miss King is the only 2 applicants. So the applicants will still be taken to what time?
Till Tuesday, probably around noon on Tuesday.
Noon Tuesday. So right now we've got two good applicants, looks like, and everybody looked that over and we'll be ready to put these people, one of them person or whoever on the Greenway. That's B, Senior Citizens Advisory Committee, 1 term vacant. And who we got?
Gwendolyn Davis has
Davis.
resigned. And we have been advertising this on Channel 3, do not have any applications at this time. So here again, if we don't have any applications by around noon on Tuesday, we will take this off the agenda for Tuesday night. Hopefully we can get 1 or 2 applications in for this position.
Then puts down a C, Park and Recreation Advisory Committee, remove 2 members, and that's Candace Bounds and Michael Dow. They both been, we'll have to remove them
Right.
Tuesday night, and then if we got any, well, we'll have to.
Once they're removed, we'll
Tuesday
open
night.
it up for applications and then hopefully make appointments at the following meeting.
I have talked to Candace Bounds, and she does wish to be removed, so.
And this is due to attendance, them
Yes.
not attending the meetings?
Correct, yes.
Okay, that puts down to 13, that discuss memorial for Fire Chief Ricky McCormick. I think, Melissa, I think this might be yours.
Yes, I'm really glad that you guys brought this up. That's something that's been on my heart too, and I talked to Bruce about adding this for a discussion item, but I know that we will be soon building a fire station, and I would like to have that fire station named after Ricky McCormick. I think it would be a good legacy. 31 years in the fire department is a very long time. He's definitely committed his life to this city, and I just think that that would be a really nice way to recognize him. And I wanted to open it up for discussion so we could all talk about it together.
I absolutely agree with that. I know before his passing, Ricky had shown me some of the designs for the proposed Fire Station 1, where we've got the Civic Center, a multi-use kind of facility in the back, and then you've got all the bays, the flagpoles, beautiful rendering. And I absolutely agree it's appropriate that it be named in his honor. Wouldn't mind seeing out, possibly even by the flags, a plaque erected there for him.
Anybody else want to comment on it? Let's see, we're moving on along. 14, discuss recommendation for integrated resource management incorporated regarding the Vergne water system. I think it might be a Dwayne deal. I think it's to do with the Bob Brokaw study. Wayne?
Thank you, Mayor Alderman. Yeah, this has to do with the report that Mr. Bolcock brought forth as from Integrated Resource Management. Some of the stuff that I've done from an Infomark perspective is addressed in more detail what Infomark has done and Infomark's recommendations, but I'm also going to talk a little bit about some things that really the city has to decide. That's really not within the realm of what Infomark could do or will do, depending on what you guys want. I think the biggest thing to recognize is in the beginning of this, when he talks about community access to information, that's really up to what you all would like to do. I only have one caution statement that I put forth is that, one of them was talking about photos and process flow diagrams of the facility, and I think you just have to keep in mind security when it comes to that. We all don't think about the activities that people do, terrorist activities that could occur, but we do want to protect our water system. So when you're looking at that and you're mulling that part over, I would highly recommend that you think about the security and how much do we want to show. Having photographs of the water treatment plant, nothing wrong with that, I don't think. Process flow diagrams and detailed information, that might be a little bit more than what you would like to share, but it's ultimately your decision. When it comes to the water resource management, all sources of flow to Percy Priest Lake, the source water protection plan. There was a 2016 source water protection plan that was written prior to me being here. I have it on my desk. I have not reviewed it yet. I do plan on reviewing it. It should be reviewed annually anyways. So I will be taking a look at that. If there's any modifications to that, I will share that with Kyle and Bruce, and ultimately you guys will get a view of that. So, you know, there is a plan in place. I just want to look at the details and how much it needs to be modified. As far as when it comes to extra sampling, we do everything the US EPA requires us to do, TDEC requires us to do. We're currently in what's called uncontaminated monitoring, or unregulated contaminant monitoring regulatory 4. They run 4 rounds of these, or they might even run more. We're currently testing cyanotoxins. So we do some things that are not regulated, just to keep an eye on what's happening with the lake. But if there's other testing that you guys decide as a board, we'll just have to sit down and discuss what are they, what do they cost, what does it mean to the community, is there something that's of risk that would be worthy of testing that? That's really going to be up to what you guys want to do as a council on any extra testing. Pharmaceuticals have become a big deal in raw water sources. So if that's something you want to do, we could talk about that, explore that, and see what that would cost. I've not done any of that because it's really up to you guys. But I will be willing to help with any of that if you all elect to do that. The next part of this was mostly about water quality. So I wrote a big report up here, and I'm going to try to summarize it kind of in an executive summary manner. The biggest things he talked about initially is algae control. So he talks about aerating Percy Priest Lake. And I'm not a local, but I know how big that lake is. And you're not going to be able to aerate Percy Priest Lake. We could hire everybody that lives all around and put them in canoes, and we still won't have enough aeration for it. So we could talk about some engineering work to do something close to the intake, close to the plant. But I was questioning the value of it, because I haven't found anything in any historical records to indicate there has been an algae problem or taste and odor problem with the algae. So we do have the treatment chemicals on place. We use potassium permanganate at the intake. That's an algicide and an oxidant. Helps with manganese removal, the primary use of what we do. We also have powder activated carbon, which helps with taste and odors that are associated with algae. You know, we could look into, is our powder activated carbon system large enough? If you have a cyanobacteria outbreak, an MIB outbreak, which is not men in black, it's a type of algae, geosmin, those are really foul odors. Cyanotoxins can actually be harmful, but the chemicals that we have will take care of them if we can feed at a high enough rate. So we just got to make sure our powder activated carbon will feed at a high enough rate for that. I have not done that work yet. My suspicions are that will not, based upon the size of the unit. We have enough carbon, it's just the feeder's not big enough. The jar testing. Jar testing, you know, his recommendation was to talk about PT 412. Just a little clarification, and I can understand why he wrote what he did, because we talked about both at the same time. PT 412 is the blanket aid I spoke to you guys about back in January. The jar testing we do is on the polymer, or on a coagulant. We're mandated by regulations to be less than 1 part per million of our PT 412. Jar testing that to monitor it between 0.5 and 0.6 is really just a waste of time, to be honest. But the coagulant is not. We jar test once a shift, every day. Whether we've used the information from jar test, there's a lot more to it. It's not just run a jar test, change chemical. It's run a jar test and compare it to multiple other factors to make a decision on whether you're going to adjust the chemical treatment or not. So we do it. He put in here report findings to consumers. I do it twice a day. And I think the complexity of it, I don't know, I'm not trying to hide anything from consumers, I just don't know if they would understand it. And if we would be able to write up a report for 2 tests a day every day. It would be very difficult to do. What we do with it is we monitor our current feed rate, we run our jar tests, we make sure our current feed rate is where it should be based upon those jar tests, and then if we see a change in the lake, we modify the treatment based upon jar testing and other parameters. For example, when the lake turns over, manganese numbers go very high, not seen in a jar test. You have to adjust that differently. So I think it's a pretty complex thing to look at. The relocation of CFE, that's happening. It's actually been relocated. We got to finalize a couple things in regards to, can the clear well level be low for the pump to still pump? The contractor's worried about that. Getting the SCADA system set up correctly and getting it approved by TDEC. So otherwise, that's pretty much in place. The manholes there covered, looks pretty good. The rest of it, when it comes to these recommendations, involves things that I wrote up. We'll skip the fluoride for a minute. But it's the things I wrote up on behalf of Infomark in our operations evaluation report that I submitted in February that TDEC got in response to our disinfection byproduct. We didn't violate anything, we were just approaching something. So they give you what's called an operations evaluation letter saying, hey, warning, you're getting close, give us a report of how you're going to resolve that. So Infomark and myself, we put together this report and we got it approved by the state and identified 5 things that we should do. And in the report I gave you guys, I identified those. One of them was tank management. When I did the review, we weren't managing our tanks very well. We were letting it kind of come and go. We were cycling them, but it wasn't intentional. And they weren't well monitored. So I've implemented, there's some graphs in here that'll hopefully show that there's more significant span in the up and down of the tanks and that it is more intentional. And that has helped us out a lot. The other thing was unidirectional flushing program. We're required to do that by our contract that we signed, that was renewed in February. Me and Michael Dietz have been talking about it, trying to get coordinated, because it's going to have to be a coordinated effort with the city. We will have a program in place before the end of the year. Just want to make sure Mike saw me on that one. But we will get that in place. Establishing the chlorine residual range was the other thing that I noticed when I came on board. Chlorine residual there was no real rhyme or reason to what was happening. Now, some of that's a challenge for the operator because we couldn't tell what the chlorine was till after it left the plant. With the new combined filter effluent line, we're now able to tell what the chlorine is before it enters the clear well. Gives us significantly more control. So that was very helpful, just having that piece. But we have a range of 2.2 to 2.7. And so far through August, it's working pretty well for us out the distribution system. So we're in pretty good shape there. The blanket A polymer, well, January put us with the blanket A polymer. When I wrote the report, I didn't know we were going to have January. So that took care of itself. And then tracking. We are in the process, Infomark's in the process of implementing an operational database called HawkWIMS. Laverne doesn't have it yet. We will be getting it. I've already submitted some of the stuff internally to my company for what they will need. But in the meantime, I've done some stuff on my own. And in his report, we talk about disinfection byproducts. We talked about TOC removal. And what I want to show you with the graphs that I included in the reports that you guys have is our TOC removal since February, because we sampled early in January, has been well over 50% in maintaining that. And we've never maintained that. If you look at that graph, you can see it's always been all over the board. And we've been maintaining well above 50% all this time. And in turn with that, our disinfection byproducts have been dropping. So there is a hand-in-hand correlation with that. So the more TOC we remove, the less disinfection byproducts you create. The month of August, the results came in, and it's showing that our tank turnover is working. It's showing our TOC removal is working because our total THMs are less than half of the maximum contaminant level. That's 80, we're at 40. Our HAA5s, which is what got us in trouble last August, where we were above 60, have been around 20 since we've implemented this. So we've done a lot of hard work to make sure that we're maintaining this without any extra cost to the city. Everything we're doing is operational changes and Quite honestly, some of it is saving some money to the city. So the graphs are in there for your review. The extra sampling on TOCs. So we talked about performing TOCs weekly. We are required to do them monthly. It costs $70 each time we do a TOC. So if we were to change it to weekly, we can do that. We can submit it to the lab, be extra $210 a month. I am working on implementing a test that's called ultraviolet absorption. It is a relationship between organics removal, where TOC actually measures it. This gives you a relationship between your raw absorbents and your finished absorbents to make sure you're removing organics. I want to build that correlation. The test kit is really just, you press a button. We have the test kit. It's no expense. And I'd like to build that relationship instead of spending an extra, whatever 210 times 12 is a year, on rather spend that money towards something else. But if you want us to, we will do the weekly TOC. That'll be up to what you guys would like. But I will be working on building that relationship to maybe help drive that decision a little bit further to see if you really want to do that. I know $210 is not expensive, so it's up to you. The big issue between granular activated carbon and anthracite. So I've worked at granular activated carbon plants along the Mississippi River for over 20 plus years. Every one of those granular activated carbon plants have powder activated carbon, because you cannot get rid of the powder activated carbon because you feed granular activated, or because you have granular activated carbon. And in times of algae blooms, you have to feed powder activated carbon for sure, because the GAC does not take care of it. There are some interesting rules within TDEC's design criteria. You cannot put GAC on top of a filter without their permission. So we have to, if you guys want to put GAC on the filters, we have to reach out to TDEC and say, this is what we want to do and this is why. What I've shown, and what I've hoped to show that you guys could see, is that the improvements we've made have been pretty significant. And that the cost of GAC, I don't have it memorized, I'm sorry, to redo one filter is $60,000. That was an average cost between two bids. To replace it with GAC is an additional $5,000 per filter to do that work. There's 8 filters at that plant. So just the GAC alone is $40,000. But it's not a one-time expense. GAC has to be regenerated or replaced so that you have a fresh set of filters combined with some expended GAC every year. So you'll be looking at replacing 2 filters out of 8, where you'll either take the GAC out and replace it with what they call virgin GAC, or you take the GAC out and they regenerate it and give it back to you to put on top of your filters. That is not a cheap proposition. So I'm not voting one way or the other on GAC. I ran GAC plants, I liked them, but I think what we really should do to be fiscally responsible is to let these changes go through and let's see the benefits we're seeing in the water quality side, especially within the distribution system, to say, is it worth spending that money on GAC? We have the ability to do some testing where we could take one plant versus the other plant, put one plant on GAC, leave the other plant on anthracite. There'll be some extra expenses, such as moving a powder activated carbon feed line, moving some other chemical feed lines, but we can then run a pilot, live pilot, to see what the benefits are. My fear is that that's a lot of money with not as much benefit as one would like. So my advice would be, let's keep making these improvements that we're making in the plant and let the data drive our decision on whether we should use GAC or not. So that's what I'm doing with there. Fluoride, the rules are pretty simple. You guys say you want fluoride, TDEC says that you guys say you want fluoride. I, as your contract operator, will feed fluoride. You guys reach out to TDEC, say you don't want to feed fluoride, TDEC removes fluoride, I stop feeding fluoride. It's really that simple. Now, the cost, just to show you what it means, in the packet there was an embedded spreadsheet, because I didn't think you guys want to see a big giant thing. Thought Excel would be easier to look at. But to give you an idea, These are extrapolated 2018 costs. It's about $10 per million gallon, or per month per meter, about 9 cents. The monthly cost per person, based upon the latest special census we did, is about 4 cents a month. And the expected cost, annual cost per meter is $1.51. So it's not an expensive chemical to feed. We will do whatever you guys wish when it comes to regard to fluoride. We'll continue to feed it like we are, or we'll remove it, and we're at the mercy of what you guys would like. I just want to give you some data to say, is there value in doing it? Because it's not expensive to the customer. But once again, that's all up to you guys. Water storage and distribution, there's a big long list here about a hydraulic model. I know you guys have a hydraulic model with Griggs and Maloney. It's old, needs to be updated, but can be updated, not problematic. Mr. Bocock is a big fan of Ethernet. I know nothing about Ethernet. I've never used it. I've used hydraulic models in the past, but not that one in particular. But he did talk about cross-connection in there, and we are running your cross-connection program. As you saw in the 2018 sanitary survey, we did very well. The director's order for the cross-connection that was given out in 2015 has been settled and closed. And as we speak, we're finalizing the filing of the records in the way that TDEC wants them filed. And we will let TDEC know on September 4th that everything's ready for their review. We will be done with all the records that they need. We currently are using a program called C3 for cross-connection. We will be updating that program with all the records that are required with TDEC, and that will solidify the cross-connection program for the city. I know Shane Bissinger has a great relationship with the people in water billing. He gets all the information he needs to adjust whenever we have new ones in, or people buying something to change addresses, pool inspections, everything that he needs, he gets with water billing, so it's very easy for us to stay on top of. So, the rest of the recommendations on the community comes down to basically, you know, leak indicators, what to do with your home. That's ultimately the city's decision, what they wish to put on their website. I don't have, I mean, some of it to me sound like something a homeowner should know anyways, but that's my opinion. And that would really be up to what you guys want to do. So, otherwise, any questions?
Any questions for Wayne? He's up here and he put a lot of information out to everybody. Anybody got any questions?
I just have a couple of comments. I know that Infomark has done a great job, and some of our residents wanted to bring in an outside specialist, and Infomark was gracious enough to welcome them in. The city employees, I've also worked with him and responding to this report and reviewing it. I want to seriously thank everyone that's been involved in this project. It's been a huge undertaking. That's why it's taken some time, because as you can see, time has been spent seriously considering each one of his suggestions. Some of them have already been implemented since he has gone, but when answers weren't immediately forthcoming, it didn't mean that the work wasn't being done, but I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bruce, do we have any recommendations put together from the city side as far as the portions of it that's under city control?
We have discussed various things. We haven't really put it in a report form. If you had any specific questions, I think Kyle could probably answer them better than I could, but, you know, that's really all we've done at this point.
Okay.
It's just more discussion than anything.
I think the biggest piece of that would be, of course, we've got Mr. Bocock's response, back in July. We've got Dwayne's response now, and in saying that, you know, it's a partnership with Infomark and the city as far as a lot of these items. So a lot of things that Dwayne has got in this report is some stuff that we've been, you know, working with him on. Like you said, he's been working with Mr. Dietz and a few others on some of these things. Going back to a lot of the community, not really involvement, but information that we're wanting to put out there. We really need to be careful with how much we put out there, because like Dwayne's saying, it's, you know, putting certain things out there is no big deal. We're not trying to hide anything, but you also don't want to open yourself up for people having easy access to know how to contaminate the water system if they wanted to, stuff like that. So that would be some of the things we wouldn't want to do. Some other things is kind of looking at how we want to get the information out, because you know, it's somewhat easy to, or would be easier to put information out on the website. However, that's not reaching everyone. That's just not going to happen. So if you start talking about sending out mailers, Wayne can tell you we've sent out some public notices and things like that, and between $6,000 and $7,000 each one. So
Yes,
how much is that report that we're sending out? How much good is it really doing? That's something we need to look at and make sure that if we're going to put out some information and spend the money, $6,000 or $7,000 a mailer, that it's actually good information and information that the residents can use and want to see. Going back to what Dwayne was saying at the very end, Mr. Bocock was saying, some of the stuff at the resident's house of how to do things. That's something I think myself and Dietz and a few more could work together to see, putting some stuff on Channel 3, also posting on the website, or at least finding links to things that we think is good information. That way if the homeowner doesn't know what to put into Google or something else, if they do not know how to do it, they don't have to try to figure that out. They can look online and see. But a lot of this, mainly, in my opinion, Dwayne's addressed in his report, other than basically a lot of the community involvement and input and information we put out there. The one thing that he did mention was the model. Now, we do have a model with Griggs and Maloney, and to be honest, with what lines and stuff we have in the ground, yes, it is an old model, but it doesn't mean just because it's old it's not accurate. It's still, and Dwayne, I think would even say the same thing, it's not really outdated. It's still good, it's still in effect. One thing I would hate to do is pay Griggs and Maloney or look at other options to update this model, knowing that we're going to do a 24-inch line, that we don't know the exact route we're going to have to take yet, because the length of that line is going to affect your model tremendously, and there's no sense of going ahead and updating models. That's just wasting the city's money. So that's one thing we're waiting on right now is, we'll look at what he has suggested as using for a model, or we may just, revise the one we currently have, just whichever one works best for the city. But we want to do that after the 24 is either installed, or at least we know the exact location it's going to be in. So any more questions than that, I'll be happy to discuss with you over the phone or whatever we need to do. That's kind of where we stand at with it right now. Like I say, it's really just going to be a lot of teamwork, working back and forth with Infomart, because I think going back to the GAC, I know what information Dwayne had put out, but I know that going back to some quotes that we've had, basically if you use an anthracite, and this is just for one filter, it's about $51,000 to do one filter, and we've got 8 filters out there. If you go with the granular activated carbon, you're looking at $132,000 for one filter. So it's not, I don't know, I know you said $4,000 difference.
I had an add-on, so it would be an additional. So I've had it range around $6,000 to $14,000 per filter to have to replace anthracite with GAC. So that's an additional on top of the anthracite.
And like I say, I've got 2 quotes here from the company that has basically been involved and done the filters that we currently have. So looking at granular activated carbon, is there benefits? Yes. Is the benefits going to prove to be cost effective, and are you really getting the benefit that you're paying for? It doesn't look like to me that you would at this point, but I think that's something we need to continue to work with Dwayne on to see if these numbers continue, because if we start seeing a regression in some of these charts and it starts going to the opposite way and we start having issues, maybe we have to go to granular activated carbon. But something right now, I just don't think we do that. I don't think we put that expense, because at that point the expense has got to be passed on to the customer, and of course we already have complaints about how utility bills at this point, and are we really getting benefit to make them even higher? So that's something we really need to look at and be responsible about.
And that's really the main message I'm putting in here. We put in a lot of changes since February, actually since January, to be honest. And the data is showing some significant improvement. So I think we let the data drive the decisions by, do the continuous improvements further? Do they stagnate? Do we see regression? And let time make the decision without jeopardizing anybody into public health or anything like that. We're not going to do that. But it's a very expensive proposition to move to GAC. And it's a high maintenance annual expense that ultimately the ratepayers are paying for. So if the benefit is there, I would be arguing for it. It's just right now the data is leading me to believe that we should hold, watch, and hopefully see continuous improvement. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Done a good job, and appreciate all your hard work. That puts us down to Mayor and Alderman comments. Alderman Jones.
I'd just like to tack on to some of the citizens' comments tonight and just say that, Ms. Skinner, I share your concerns on that. And what I will do is I'll get with who's ever in charge of that over in the city to get the name of the company. And if we call the company, then I'm sure the company wouldn't want that liability on their back. So that's one of the things that I feel that needs to be addressed. Number two was the memorial. I'm in agreement with naming our new fire department when it comes to fruition after Ricky. The only thing that I would like to add to that, as far as the memorial that the gentleman walked up and was concerned about, is I would like to see a plaque or a memorial on the headquarters of where they were working. I would love to see a plaque for Ricky and any other firemen on the headquarters of the fire department, any policemen on the headquarters of the fire department at the opening or on the interior of the buildings. I think that would go a whole lot further, and that way, as far as the Veteran Memorial Park, we won't have, it's because at some point, you know, it's, you know, I don't mean to sound callous about it, but people will die. So we don't want to have thousands of plaques in different spots out there. And if the individual that happens to pass away was a veteran, then they'll get two. We need one in both locations, at the Memorial Park and where they worked. And I think that would be a lot more sensible in its planning. The other is the comment about the private property and the signs. That came before a board that I sat on with the Planning Commission, and after we researched it, it was pulled because at no point are we trying to infringe on anyone's private property. That was the thing that I was totally against. I wouldn't want anybody to come tell me what I can put in my yard. What we were concerned about was public safety. We don't want individuals running out into the streets and flashing signs, even if it's a juvenile matter, and they think it's a juvenile matter, because we know, everyone in here that's a citizen of this city knows that you've got two fractions. You got this side and you got that side. And if one from this side comes in front of one from that side, who's to say that they're going to slow down? That might give them the right to go ahead and plot. We don't want that to happen. So that's why we were addressing it, for the public safety. And at no point were we concerned about what people put in their yard. At least I wasn't. And if anyone's pulling stuff up out of their yard, the last word that I got on it, the Supreme Court has not rendered a proper decision yet, so they shouldn't be taking things out of your yard. That shouldn't be happening. So you need to get with the proper individuals in the cities and have them explain that and let them know. Now, if they was in the yard and it was in the easement, then they have a right to do that. That wasn't proper. But you know, that's just something that we all gonna have to, you know, like it or not, we're all gonna have to communicate. You're gonna have to talk to somebody, and you're gonna have to discuss this. If you don't know it, don't write your own rules. Just ask somebody. It's all got to be in writing somewhere before it can take effect. And those are the major points that I wanted to respond to from tonight's comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Brown.
I'd like everyone to keep Ricky McCormick's family in the prayers, and the fire department's family. The fire department is a family, so keep them in the prayers. I know everyone's still missing him and trying to pick up the pieces, so just keep them in your prayers. And the next thing is I just really want to say a very big thank you to the Rutherford County Industrial Development Board, the Chamber of Commerce, our internal economic development team, and all of the city and county employees that have worked together to try to build, bring jobs to the city. I know there was a big announcement that was kind of made in the Daily News Journal yesterday, so I just wanted to say thank you so much. I know you've been working on this for months, and it is something that can really affect a lot of people here in Laverne. I think it's going to be a good thing. And also, I want to thank again Dwayne Lowry for addressing Bob Bocock's concerns and for all the work that everyone in the city has put towards that project. I know it's been a very large undertaking involving multiple departments, and it's been going on for a while now, and so there's a lot of work that's been going into that. That is us investing time and energy and money into you, our citizens, and that's what we're here for, and I'm really proud of how things are coming along in that process. That's all.
Alderman Cole.
Well, I want to thank our partners with the Chamber of Commerce, Paul, Patrick, Aaron. I was up there recently for the IDB decision with Project Wolverine, bringing 850 new jobs to Laverne. So that is a very good thing. We're all looking forward to the company announcement. So very thankful for their hard work, what they've been doing. Want to thank Commissioner Doug Schaefer for his work that he's done for the city of Laverne for the last 6 years. And so he served as one of our county commissioners, and we appreciate everything he's done. So thank you.
I want everybody to have a safe Labor Day weekend. We got a long weekend ahead, and watching the news, it started at 4 o'clock, and they said the law enforcement's going to be out in force with the alcohol and the speeding and the seat belts and all that. So be aware if you're out. And we're right up on Old Timers Day again. You know, September the 8th it comes early this year. It starts off with a country ham breakfast at the rescue squad, and the parade starts at 10. The parade starts at City Hall and ends at Veterans Park. The theme this year is Small Town, Big Future. The festival is at the Veterans Memorial Park. We scheduled a huge carnival, bigger than past years, and live music, food courts, crafts, kid zones, and more. We got a good lineup for music, mix, top 80s. That's the group's names. I take it they play top hits of the 80s. And we got a good country band, Zach Ray, and then everybody's favorite is Misty Garrett. She plays a little bit of everything, and everybody always loved her and everything. And I want to thank Doug Schaefer for his service for the country. He's a veteran, and he served Laverne, I think it's District 1, wasn't it, for 4 terms. And he's also served on the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee, and I'll probably leaving one out. Have you served on anything else, Doug? Zoning Appeals, that's right, that's Zoning Appeals. And appreciate all your service from the Laverne, the county, and our country. And we all salute you. You're an honored veteran, and we appreciate your service. And that's all I've got. I just appreciate everybody coming. We had some rain come by today, and so I hope I can mow my grass tomorrow. And I don't have anything else, so I'm going to call this workshop done.